Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take sources you might be hearing about, pull them apart, and give you the key takeaways, the goal, to get you well-informed, fast, maybe with a few surprises along the way.
And today we're digging into some excerpts from a piece called Bridging Hearts and Screens. It's all about a specific medical education program.
Right. So our mission for this deep dive is to really get under the hood of how tomorrow's doctors are learning, arguably one of the most critical skills,
Yeah,
communications. How do they talk to patients?
exactly. And we'll be looking at some pretty innovative methods they're using. We think there might be some, universally useful lessons here about effective communication, stuff that could apply way beyond just medicine.
Okay, let's dive in. The main focus here is something called the Online Simulated Patient Interaction and Assessment System. Bit of a mouthful, so let's call it OSPIA.
Yeah, OSPIA. It's run by the University of New South Wales Faculty of Medicine and Health. And basically, you can think of it as like a virtual training ground.
So medical students interacting online with actors, simulated patients.
Simulated patients, yeah. People trained to role-play various conditions and scenarios.
Got it. And the source material actually gives us a first-hand account, right?
It does. From the author, Mark Perry, he was actually in the system playing the role of a patient with osteoarthritis. That's a joint condition.
Oh, okay.
And he talks about his interaction online with a first-year med student. So you get a real sense of it from the patient perspective, which is pretty neat.
That is interesting. So why create this whole online system? What's the driving idea behind OSPIA?
Well, Associate Professor Silas Taylor, who's involved, explains it's really about helping students get comfortable. Comfortable with having conversations that are, respectful, caring, and actually effective.
Not just ticking boxes, but genuinely connecting.
Precisely. It's not just about getting the medical facts across, but building that patient relationship.
And this isn't just a nice idea they had, is it? There's evidence behind this focus on communication.
Oh, absolutely. The program's built on solid research. The excerpts make it clear studies show that good communication, including like using compassionate words, it genuinely builds trust.
And trust leads to.
Better outcomes. Patients who trust their clinician are more likely to stick with their treatments, follow advice, and that ultimately leads to better health. It's quite direct.
It really underscores how vital that interaction is.
No.
So OSPIA didn't just appear out of nowhere.
No, it actually grew out of an older face-to-face simulated patient program they already had.
Okay.
And Silas Taylor makes this point about it being a big step for students,
Huh.
going from practicing talking to their classmates
Right. Most
to suddenly dealing with real patients, real emotions in a busy hospital. That's a huge leap. OSPIA is sort of designed as a bridge.
a safer space to practice before the real thing. Makes sense. How is it structured? What guides the learning?
Good question. It's not just random chats. They mention using the Calgary-Cambridge Guide to the Medical Interview as a kind of foundation.
I've heard of that. It's a structured approach.
Yeah, it gives a framework. Things like how to build rapport, how to gather information logically, explaining things clearly, sharing decisions, that kind of stuff.
So a roadmap for the conversation.
Kind of.
Wow.
And they combine these online simulations with, the usual lectures, tutorials, workshops, clinical activities. Taylor really emphasizes learning by doing, experiential learning.
Right. You can't just read about communication in a book.
Exactly.
And there was someone specific involved in designing this.
Yes, Dr. Renee Lim. She was key in developing both the original face-to-face program and this newer online OSPIA system.
And her focus was on.
Using technology smartly, not just for the sake of it, but to really boost learning, make it more accessible. You can reach more students online, right? And also, importantly, to help with managing data and evaluating how students are doing.
The data aspect. Let's talk about that. What's involved for the simulated patients? They just log on.
Well, there's a bit more to it. They need a suitable workspace, the right tech, of course. They get specific training materials and these detailed fictional patient scenarios to learn.
So they know their character.
Absolutely. But a really critical part seems to be how OSPIA collects data during the interaction. This data feeds back to the students for reflection and assessment.
Okay, feedback. How does that work in practice? Mark Perry, the author patient, what did he do?
He describes giving feedback, and it sounds pretty sophisticated. It wasn't just a general good job. He used time-stamped thumbs up and thumbs down signals during the simulation.
Wow, really? So like pinpointing specific moments.
Exactly. You can see precisely where the student maybe built rapport well, or perhaps where the communication faltered a bit. It's very direct.
That's incredibly specific. Imagine that in, say, customer service training.
Right. And then after the whole interaction, there's a more formal survey the simulated patient fills out, assessing different communication skills.
Like rapport building, information gathering.
Shared understanding, things like that. And it's not one-sided. The medical students also do their own self-assessment using the same checklists.
Oh, interesting. So they rate themselves and then compare.
Yep. Compare their perception with the feedback from the patient. And the key thing at this early stage anyway is that the focus is squarely on those generic communication skills.
Not so much on whether they got the diagnosis right.
Exactly. That comes later. Right now it's about how they interact, how they listen, how they explain.
We also hear from Dr. Kelly Spencer, a urologist who lectures in the program. What's his take?
He really emphasizes the value of OSPIA providing a real experience. He calls it the next best thing to actually being on the wards.
Yeah, and the fact it's recorded.
Huge advantage, he says. It's a safe environment, mistakes aren't critical, and students can go back, watch themselves, review the feedback. It's a powerful learning loop.
That makes a lot of sense. What about empathy? That word comes up a lot. Can you actually teach empathy? Dr. Spencer weighs in on this.
He does, and it's a big question, isn't it? Can empathy be taught? His view, and he says it's backed by evidence, is yes.
Really?
Yeah. He suggests that this kind of work, interacting with simulated patients, understanding their perspective, getting feedback, it actively helps develop empathy.
So it's less an innate trait and more a skill you can cultivate.
That seems to be the idea. Practice, reflection, feedback. It nurtures that empathetic capacity.
Which ties into the whole philosophy they mentioned, this human-centered approach.
Right. It's not just about clinical knowledge transfer. It's about fostering learning, growth, developing those core interaction skills, bringing the heart, as the source says, into medical training, even online.
And a big part of that heart is nonverbal stuff, right? Even online.
Absolutely. The excerpts highlight how much nonverbal cues matter, even on screen. A smile, a nod, facial expressions, body language, even your tone of voice.
They convey so much.
Tons. And interestingly, the OSPA tech can apparently even track things like turn taking, who's speaking when, and the speaking ratio.
Seriously, data on how much each person talks.
Yeah. So students can reflect on whether they dominated the conversation or maybe didn't encourage the patient to speak enough. It's about engagement.
Wow. That drills down into active listening, doesn't it?
It really does. Making the patient feel genuinely seen, heard, respected. That's fundamental to building trust and, again, ties back to developing empathy. It's much more than just the words used.
It seems like it all circles back to that core idea. Better communication, more compassionate interaction.
Leads to better relationships and better health outcomes. OSPIA is just a really interesting tech-enabled way of trying to build those skills right from the start of a doctor's journey.
Okay, so let's try and wrap up the key takeaway from this deep dive. We've seen how UNSW's medical school is using this innovative online system, OSPIA, with simulated patients.
And it's not just about tech. It's a carefully designed program blending theory, like the Calgary-Cambridge Guide, with practical experience.
Right. The goal is to actively teach and assess those crucial skills, communication and empathy, in a safe, reflective environment, using specific feedback loops.
It's about preparing future doctors not just with knowledge, but with the human skills essential for good patient care, putting the heart into it, even through a screen.
So that leads us to a final thought for you, the listener. We've seen how vital human interaction is in medicine and how they're innovating training for it.
So the question is, what can other fields learn from this? Think about your own profession or even just everyday life. How central is effective communication?
Could incorporating elements like simulated scenarios, role-playing, specific feedback mechanisms, could that help enhance interpersonal skills, build stronger connections, improve outcomes in areas completely outside of healthcare?
How might we adapt these ideas to train for better communication and empathy in business, education, customer service, or anywhere human connection matters? Definitely something to think about.